Caregiver recruiting and retention is the big burning issue for every company in the industry. We've had lots of conversations. We've done lots of research. John, tell us about some of the things that you've learned that are going to help you going forward in 2022 to find and keep the caregivers you need.
Yeah, so really hitting on when we went through the 10 trends in the last session, if you were on it, trend number 10, essentially making your company a place that people want to work. One of the things we've talked about in some of our different mastermind groups is essentially using propaganda, if you will, to spread good news within your company. And we do that all over our social media channels, any way we can. Make the company a place people want to work. Because if you have caregivers, they're probably not just applying to your company. They're probably sending applications out to 2, 3, 4, 7 different companies. And not only is response time key, but also if you think about it, when's the last time you went to a new restaurant without getting on Google and looking at reviews? I know at least me personally, I'm always getting on Google, checking out the reviews, seeing what it is, maybe checking out Facebook as well or Instagram to see if there's anything on there about that. Is this a place I really want to go eat, take my family to eat? People are doing the same thing. The feedback we're getting from our caregivers is, hey, your company seems like a company that I want to work for. You really care about people. You guys do some fun activities. People seem to, give you good reviews. So that's a really big takeaway that we learned, is using any platform we can to make our company a more appealing place for not only just applicants coming to our company, but clients or family members of clients looking for care. And one of the things that we started doing is really encouraging reviews. We do different raffles and things like that for people who leave reviews. That's something that was really helpful for us, for clients and caregivers, trying to get people to leave good reviews. And we want honest reviews. We've encouraged people, if you're not satisfied, leave that review. Obviously, we prefer they come to us first so we can fix it kind of offline. But we feel like it makes us real. Whenever there's a negative review on there, well, it gives us an opportunity to get on, address that review, and then learn from it. We don't want people just coming in and sharing fluff. We want real, honest things, because it's going to allow us to improve. So just that propaganda is something that we really took away as far as recruiting and retention. And the other thing I'll add that we put into place, and this is something I talked about in one of our groups before, but we have a flexible person. And whether you have 30 people in the management level in your position or 3, we have a flexible person who's dedicated to responding to people on all social media platforms and anything that comes into our website, off hours and on weekends. I don't know about you, when you get a lot of your applications, most of ours come in, or inquiries about working, in the evenings and on weekends. I mean, we'll get stuff in at 1 o'clock in the morning. Maybe somebody's working at a front desk at a hotel, and they're fed up with their job and they're looking to apply for other companies. We have somebody that they have a very flexible schedule, and their main job is to respond to those people off hours and on a weekend. And it's really kind of our secret sauce as far as that engagement. Because like I talked about, the quicker you respond to people when they're looking at other companies, the better chance you have of getting them. So having that flex person, if we respond to that person, if I ask her a question at 10 o'clock in the morning, she may not get back to me at 8 o'clock at night. And that's fine, because her main job is responding to these people off hours. So that's a position we put in place late 2020. And we really found that to be invaluable. It could be a part-time position. You can have a college student do it. I mean, they're usually up late hours anyways. That's something that's been really helpful for us moving forward, especially with recruiting.
And that notion of that flexible person really feeds into something that we've had lots of conversations about, which is shortening the speed to hire from when that individual clicks on the application button to when they're ready, what we call shift ready to take that first shift. And so thanks for that. We appreciate that. Alan, tell us about some of the things that you've learned that have helped you get ready for 2022 in terms of finding and keeping the caregivers you need.
I think number one is, I can't stress enough what John mentioned about the reviews. And there's so many opportunities that present themselves, every single day that your team is talking with your clients or your care pros. If they're engaged, they're happy, they're excited, that is the absolute best time to have them, hey, would you mind doing me a favor? Because, this will help us to attract other like-minded individuals, other like-minded customers that are looking for care. Would you mind giving us a review? And it's amazing how many people talk about reviews, but when you go into their Indeed, their Glassdoor, their Google, they don't have any reviews. So it really starts there. And we have a focus of every single week, each office needs to generate just one Google review. And it's listening to when the customers or the care pros are excited and they're happy about what's going on. The other thing is, I think that's really important and with retention is really making sure that your team is listening to your care pros when things aren't going well, and make sure that they literally are communicating clearly, early, and often to resolve those issues, because our care pros and our clients are telling us every single day when things are going well and when they're not. So that really is an opportunity. I also think that, you know, your culture, it was talked about, but really it's making sure that you're aligning your team with your core values, and really ensuring that your core values are living, breathing, they literally just permeate everything in your company, and that you're recruiting, hiring, and potentially firing, people that don't align well. One thing that I am a big fan of, and it was alluded to a little bit earlier, is the 80-20 rule. 80% of your issues, 90% of your issues are coming from a very, very small part of your team. It could be clients, it could be care pros, but dealing with those issues and either helping them rise up or help them out the door. I think it gets back to the invisible spotlight. Everybody is looking at the people on this call to make the decisions to ensure that this is a great environment, it's a great culture. And I have always said, great caregivers want to work around other great caregivers who care as much as they do. But it starts with us. It starts with our management team of how we support our team each and every day.
One of the things that we've learned, and actually we learned it from the Home Care Pulse benchmarking study a couple of years ago, that a significant portion of our turnover happens in the first 90 days. Todd and Tyler shared earlier the trend for this year, and we see that turnover is basically flat over the last 5 years. But yet we know that most of that happens in the first 90 days. Alan, what are some things that you have done to look at 90-day retention, and how has that worked for you?
We literally, number one of the most important things is, again, making sure that you have the stringent hiring standards ever. A lot of people, in this environment want to look for ways to, well, maybe we need to relax. I think that it's absolutely just the opposite. You need to have the highest hiring standards ever in this environment. We have an individual that is tracking every single new hire that we onboard, making sure that they have schedules. Probably one of the most impactful things, and it kind of ties into a little bit with the data, but utilization reports of, how are we utilizing our care pros? How many hours do they want to work? And how effective are we at giving them a schedule? And not only making sure that they have hours to provide, and receive work, but really making sure not only, do our clients love our care pros, but our care pros love our clients, and it's a great fit. So I think the utilization reports, because in today's environment, if you've got a great caregiver and you don't have hours for them to work, they will not be around very long.
John, your business is different than Alan's in that you're predominantly Medicaid waiver, which means your reimbursement rates are fixed by the state. And as wages go up, the reimbursement rate does not necessarily go up. How has that impacted retention, and particularly 90-day retention? And what are you able to do to keep those people past that first 90 days?
Yeah, it's definitely been a little bit trickier with the demand for higher pay rates. And, we're in Pennsylvania, we got a small raise to our reimbursement rate, but not significant enough to write home about, I would say. But for us, we've really worked on trying to get feedback, regardless of the rate, on these caregivers after their first shift, our first 2 shifts. Something we've implemented that's been really helpful. You've probably all heard like the classic example, but we had it in December. We had somebody who was extremely allergic to cats, got put in a home with cats, because our hiring manager didn't pay attention to that. And she was ready to quit after her first shift. We have someone in our office now that calls people after their first shift, and we're able to get her out of there. And she's been doing a great job since then. And that's just one example, but that's something that we've really started to implement over the last few months, is really reaching out to people after that first shift, not after the first couple of weeks or anything like that, but that very first shift has been really helpful for us. And then constant contact through those 90 days. I see the stat that Connor just put up about the 57%. We have a pretty good turnover rate in the first 90 days. Once people have been with us for 90 days, it's not as bad, but it is difficult. And that contact during those first 90 days, that engagement, I believe is really key. The people that we can't really get a hold of, that we don't engage with, don't seem to stick around. But the people that are answering their phones, answering their texts, engaging with us, typically we're able to keep those people on board. And one thing I would note here, that we've kind of pulled our hair out over turnover, but there are people that you're going to hire in those first 90 days, regardless of your vetting process, that it's just home care is just not for them. And realize that that's not something that you need to change necessarily with your retention efforts. You maybe need to do a better job of screening those people and giving them a more realistic presentation of what that's about. We tried some different things with painting a really, happy-go-lucky picture, if you will, about home care, which it is very rewarding. And we kind of glossed over some of the more difficulties just to see how that would help. That increased our recruitment. We were hiring more people in the area that we tested that, but our retention was worse because people didn't get a realistic picture of what it looked like. So I think that's really important, is to make sure you're giving individuals a realistic picture, because it might not be for them in doing that. But it is tricky. Going back to what you said, Stephen, with the cap on the reimbursement rate with Medicaid. That's why the whole company culture and environment, and making it a place people want to stay with, engaging people into that is really important, especially in those first 90 days.
Yeah. Go ahead, Alan.
Steve, I was just going to add one simple thing is I think it's important as we bring people onto our team and into our company is very early on identifying, what is most important to them. What are the three primary factors that drive them? What are the three things that they're looking for from us? And if we can document those, we all know that if somebody's coming into an organization, a new company, there's going to be challenges. But it's so nice when there's an issue or something bubbles up. It's being able to go back to that individual and say, hey, I understand this is frustrating. The good news is what you said that early on that was important to you was this. Good news is we're delivering upon that, and we've got an issue. We're committed to resolving it, but understanding and having that care professional understand, like, yeah, you really are hitting on my three most important issues. This is frustrating, but we can get through it.
There's a good question in the chat box, and that has caused me to make a decision to shift the order of the three topics that we're going to discuss today. So I'm going to jump past industry consolidation. We're going to come back to that. And the next one is about data-oriented decision-making. And a question in the chat to Alan: do you build your own utilization reports? So I'm going to ask each of you to tell us a little bit about the metrics that you track, how you analyze that data, and then how you use that to make better strategic decisions. So Alan, since the question was targeted to you, I'll let you go first.
As far as, yes, we literally, and again, I can't get into too much detail as far as the specifics, but we do track what our care professionals are looking for as far as their hours that they want to work each week. And then we basically have that in a spreadsheet. It's tracked weekly. So we understand if anybody is falling below, and it's one thing is we don't want to fall below. The interesting thing is we also don't want to go too high. We don't want to overwork, because we all know there's the care professionals that will always say yes to everything, and they're our go-to people. And it doesn't take much to burn them out. So we're focusing on making sure they're not underutilized, but not overutilized, because we know it's also important that people have consistency in hours, but it is a self-made and tracked report.
And what other kinds of data are you tracking, Alan, and how do you analyze that data so you can make better decisions going forward?
One thing I will tell you that we do is we ask that, we want to break down and make things as easy as possible. So we look down, it's like, what do we need to do on a monthly basis? If that's what we want to achieve on a monthly basis, what does it look like on a weekly basis? And if that's what it looks like on a weekly basis, what does it look like on a daily basis? So one of the things that we do is we track our quality assurance and support visits. How often are we getting out to our families, meeting with the family? And we know that if we're in front of the client, not only are we in front of the client, understanding what issues that are taking place, what, potentially adjustments in the care plan, it also gives us an opportunity to sit down with our care pro and ask them, what do they need? How are we supporting them? But also we engage them in being an active participant in the development of the care plan. And that really drives ownership. And when they look at that care plan in ClearCare, they can see that their recommendations, their ideas are being implemented into that care plan. And I think it really drives the fact that they are playing a very active role in the client's care and the success of our company.
A follow-up question to that, Alan, is who is making those visits to the client's home?
So we like here in St. Louis, we have 5 local offices. Each office has an area care manager, an assistant area care manager. So our management team is going out. We break it down to where on average, each office has to do 2 client visits per day. It's not, you go out and visit one client in the morning and really anyone in our office can go, but it's really, it's really our leadership team who have a vested interest in making sure that things are working well. It's a good fit. The client's happy, the care pro's happy, and it's very manageable. It's no one can say I didn't have time to go visit 2 clients today. And then also making sure that we're taking something away from that visit to make the experience better for everyone involved.
John, tell us a little bit about some of the data points that you're tracking and how you use that analysis to make better strategic decisions.
Sure, yeah. So caregiver utilization has become a big thing for us over the past year and a half. It's not something that we tracked, honestly, before that. But talking with some other members in our groups, it's something that's been really, really important for us. And as far as what the magic utilization number or percentage is, we find out what people want to work whenever we're doing the interview and onboarding. Well, how many hours are you looking for? Maybe they're looking for 40 hours a week. Okay. Is there a minimum or maximum threshold you're willing to work? We start asking that question as well. And we'll have people say, well, I'd really like to work 40, but if I have to, I could work 50 for a couple of weeks, or if I'm less than 30, I'm not going to be able to pay my bills. So I need to be at least 30. So we put that number in, for our utilization. We'll put in 40, what the request is. And we use ClearCare. In ClearCare, you can run a utilization report and you can see what percentage of the actual hours that you have assigned to that caregiver are being used. We run a master report. I believe it's color coded, if I remember correctly, last time I looked at it. And you can see when people are in yellow or red and see if there's an issue. And those are caregivers that we want to make sure we find shifts for. And one of the nice things is presenting it to those people that are underutilized at the time, is presented to them in a way. And this is another idea I've gotten from somebody else. But hey, I'm trying to help you get to the paycheck that you want to get or earn the hours that you want to get. I have a shift for you that I think would help you get there. Or I have another client that I think if you started working with, it's going to help you get to that pay you want. Make it so you're partnering with that caregiver instead of, hey, there's a call off, I really need you to fill in. Actually making it something where you're actually valuing them and what they're looking for. So caregiver utilization is big for us. We are tracking the turnover in those first 90 days. I see somebody asked about what our points of contact are. One of the things we're making sure is reaching out to people after their first shift. We're reaching out to them after 14 days, after 60 days, and after 90 days. Those are all mandatory phone calls in our company, but we're texting them on a weekly basis. Texting for a lot of our caregivers is the easiest form of communication. And it's just checking in. Hey, how's everything going? Is there anything I can help with? Anything you need changed? Any supplies you need? Just that engagement through text. It's really, really low from a time standpoint to do that. So we're really hitting those touch points. As far as other KPIs, we talked about a little bit, was mentioned on the last call. What's your ROI on where you're recruiting caregivers? We have a budget for growth, which includes our marketing for clients and our recruiting for caregivers. And it used to be more split. It's pretty much 90-10 now, 90% towards recruiting, 10% towards marketing. But where are you recruiting? Indeed wasn't a big thing for us. Indeed's a lot bigger now. I saw that, on the last presentation, Indeed was huge. Facebook recruiting is really big for us now as well. Are you doing referrals? We're tracking referrals. Our number one referral source is caregiver referrals. So we're tracking where everything's coming from. And then when you place ads, one of the things that we're doing is A/B testing with ads. So say we have an ad in the North Hills of Pittsburgh, right? We'll run 2 different ads for that area and see, is a very specific ad for the type of case we have, the type of caregiver we need. Is that going to get more applicants, or is a more vague ad going to get more applicants? And I encourage you to test those ads out, that A/B testing. We have certain locations in Pennsylvania where very specific, we need somebody for these hours, this type of caregiver and everything. That's going to generate more applicants. And then we have other areas where just kind of a vague general ad is going to generate more applicants. So we're really tracking and trying to really get down to a fine-tooth comb of what type of ads are getting us the best bang for our buck, not just for the number of applicants, but quality applicants, right, is what we want. So that's a big thing that we're tracking. And then onboarding time, which we mentioned already. How quickly can you get somebody from the time that they apply or express interest on a Facebook post or whatever, how quickly can you get that person trained, onboarded, and working their first shift? And I'm a big visual guy, so I like to think of a channel, and you have all these stones in the channel, right? And those stones represent roadblocks. You want that water to flow through that as fast as possible. So how many of those stones and those boulders can you move? And a lot of that is becoming more systematic and process oriented and eliminating those roadblocks. Maybe there's a way you can become more efficient than that. Maybe you can't completely remove that big boulder, but you can make it very small so it's not going to cause a major hangup. So those are really the main things that we're tracking. But it's really centered around caregivers in that recruiting and retention. Going back to the main thing, we're tracking some other KPIs, but the ones that are really our big point of emphasis at this point are those utilization, how quick we can onboard people, and how cost effective our ads are.
Thanks, John. Alan, I see you nodding to a lot of the points that John made. You want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll probably just throw something out it's a little, it's not so number based, because we're a little unique in the fact that, when you get down to all the financial KPIs and all the tracking, that's probably not my strength. But what we want to do, like I said before, break everything down. And one thing that we track really it's our relationships, because we don't have quotas. We don't have, for our people out there building relationships with our community, we don't have quotas, but what we're looking for based on the type of referral source it is, we want to, and John mentioned this, be very focused on where you're building relationships. And if you have a relationships should equal calls. And where you have no calls, really, it's not a negative. It just means that we have to work harder to build the relationship. So we're monitoring how many of our referrals are active, and really it's like telling us how strong is our relationship with the community. Not trying to shoot a shotgun, but we're very rifle approached at who we are looking at, and just make sure that we're having active ongoing calls. And it doesn't even matter if it's necessarily it turns into a client. It's, were they thinking of us? That's the relationship, because this is a relationship business. And I think for most part, if you're too analytical, too numbers driven, this marketplace will see that and will be turned off by it. That's
great. Thanks, Alan. For those of you out there, as I've been listening to Alan and to John, it takes me back to some research that we've been doing at our Caregiver Quality Assurance Program, looking at 90-day retention. And we've identified that the 3 big causes of turnover in the first 90 days are, first of all, a bad hire. And Alan mentioned the importance of being even more selective now than in the past, because if we make a bad hire, they're going to turn over. And the latest home care pulse data I saw was that it costs about $2,600 to hire somebody and have them leave. And so you multiply that by that 64% turnover number, and we're talking about some significant dollars. The second thing we talked about was the balance for our workers in the first 90 days of the hours that they want versus the hours that they actually are scheduled. And we've actually taken that a little bit deeper, because some of the research we've done has been around economically fragile caregivers, those caregivers who sort of live on the edge economically. And John mentioned a caregiver saying, well, I need at least 30 hours a week, and if I don't get that, I I got to go somewhere else. What's the paycheck balance? And we've actually done some testing with asking new hires, what's your expectation for your take-home pay every week? And then do the math to calculate how many hours do they need to work, and with their withholding, how many dollars are going to be in their paycheck. And then actually having the schedulers have access to that information to be able to say to Sally caregiver, Sally, you said you need to earn $500 a week. I'm looking at your schedule. If you want your paycheck to be that, you're going to need to work a few more hours. I have a shift available. Would you consider? And so having that information and having that conversation, which sometimes is uncomfortable for folks, yet for the caregivers, that's really the balance. And then the third thing you all talked about was engagement, and you mentioned tracking engagement and the number of touch points that you have. And so analyzing your data and understanding each of these three elements really has a positive impact on improving 90-day retention. So great information, great comments. Yeah, go ahead, Alan, you have a comment?
I was just going to say, one thing that I think is helpful is making sure as you onboard new, care professionals into your company is, one thing that we do that I think is beneficial is letting them know, and it's on their lanyard, on their badges, 2 emails. One is, I have a question at assistancehc.com. So if they have any questions at any time, there is literally an email. They can fire off a question. We'll respond to it very timely. But another one is, I want hours at Assistance HC. So literally, if you have a question, here's what you do. If you want hours, here's what you do. And, so it's really empowering them to play an active, role in their career and in their financial matters.